Hey everybody, welcome once again to Strictly Speaking here on True Blue. Today we're going to live up to our name. We're going to talk about crime. We're going to talk about policing. We're going to talk about everything that's going on in this really strange time in the United States. Crime is through the roof. Violent crime is on the rise. Prosecutions and jail time is down. We got radical people trying to empty the jails. Others saying, no, that's just good policy. It's criminal justice reform and it cuts down on recidivism. And all of those kinds of things. So we are going to talk about crime today, and we've got a veteran to do it. We actually talked to him on True Blue before on a previous program, but it's the first time we will have a 30-year Cleveland, Ohio police detective and former president of the police union in town, the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, who has kind of seen it all in 3 decades on the force. First time we'll have had Steve Loomis right here on Strictly Speaking. So Steve Loomis, my friend, welcome back. Sir. It's good to have you back here in the True Blue studios. A little bit of a different set than the last time we talked. We're doing a little something different here.
Nice. We're moving up in the world.
Yeah, well, we had to put out all the red carpet and bells and whistles for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you being here. So yeah, it's been a little bit of time since we've talked, and as I asked you out the air before we got started, 30 years in, you could have gotten out when? 25?
5 years ago. Yeah. 25.
What are you still doing in this game? You got people fleeing the policing profession now, and you're still hanging on.
So many people need us out there, and what are you going to do? I'm not the guy that sits home on the couch and complains about everything. I want to be involved.
Yeah, you are.
Trying to fix
But you also then go to try to help it, because I've known you long enough to know you do complain about those things. Yeah. But I mean, really, and it's obviously I'm kind of poking at you here a little bit, but it's a testament to your dedication, because as we see, not just in this town, but in cities, particularly large urban centers that are very similar in demographics and similar in their political ideologies and in their voting patterns, where the crime is the highest, we're seeing cops fleeing. They're fleeing those cities. They're either transferring to, smaller, maybe safer towns, or they're just getting out of the game altogether, and you're still here. Why?
Yeah.
What drives you?
Well, I'm in the homicide unit right now, which is a really good place to be. We get to investigate, the most heinous of crimes, and we're working for the moms and the grandmas that lost somebody out there. So it's rewarding work right now, the current assignment that I have. So I'm not in a big hurry to go anywhere, but boy, it's getting tough. Police officers are not afraid of the bad guys. The bad guys have been the bad guys forever. They're all 18 to 25 years old. They stay the same age while we get older on the job, right? They're afraid of the politics. The cops are leaving, as you said, because of the politics of the thing. So.
Yeah, but shouldn't they be afraid of both because of the politics? Because the criminals, I'm a layman, I'm a regular old civilian, but I read and I watch it and I study it and I talk about it, and it would appear that the criminals know the politics that the cops are facing.
That's correct.
And they're bolder and they're more brazen, and they don't care. Even if one of them does happen to catch me, they know they're going to get a no cash bail in many cases. Sure. And then they're going to get a slap on the wrist, if anything, from a judge. And that's got to make it harder for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're younger, and that's a big thing. The age of these hardened guys, these violent guys, is getting younger and younger, and we're seeing a lot.
So they're committing more violent crimes earlier in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely, because they can get away with it. I mean, just use the analogy of your 4-year-old grandson, wanting an Oreo cookie, and you tell him no, and you slap his hand when he takes one, but if you don't, the Oreos are going to be gone, and that's exactly what we have with the Kia boys and these young kids that think that it's Instagram or Twitter. It's cool to put a gun in somebody's face. It's getting gas on their way home from work and stealing their car. They're recording
for kicks. They're
kicks.
Not even taking them to chop shops and trying to cash in.
Absolutely.
It's just for fun.
Yep.
Or for dares.
And then let's get in a chase, because we know most of the cops aren't going to chase them. Not for any length of time, although that's starting to change. Now it's even changing a little bit here in Cleveland, but it's certainly changing in the inner ring suburbs. And as a result, what else is changing? Their violent crimes are going down. The bad guys aren't going up into Parma. They're not going into Westlake. They're not going into Beechwood, because they know that those guys, their policies are going to allow those guys to chase them until the wheels fall off the police cars. and there's going to end up being a consequence for that behavior. So it's easier just to stay in Cleveland, go to East Cleveland, go to some of these other places that's a little bit more liberal, a little bit more lax in their policies. So that's what we're seeing. It's human nature. You know, the kids are getting away with what we adults allow them to get away with, what the judges allow them to get away with, what the police policies, the city councils. It's just relentless. The idiosyncrasies.
How do you deal with the disrespect anymore? Because you know what's gone viral, and I should probably throw some of these up on the screen, and maybe
Sure.
we will, but if you watch Instagram or if you watch TikTok, and I try not to watch TikTok, but I do have people email things to me, and you end up seeing one, and then you end up scrolling it. Steve, the number of videos that I've seen on Instagram Reels and TikTok videos of people disrespecting the police officer who pulls them over. And I don't mean just like, rudeness while they give them their license. And I mean, F you. Why'd you pull me over? And you can't do that to me. I want to talk to your supervisor. I want to talk to your sergeant. And just like, I'm the driver. I'm the one being pulled over. You've got the badge and the flashing lights back there, but I'm controlling this situation. And over and over and over, Steve, I see that, and I keep saying to myself, "Will you hit him?"
Yeah.
I want the cop to just smash them in the face and say, "Shut up and give me your license." And I know you can't.
Yeah.
But there used to be at least a modicum of respect for the law and the officer, knowing that if I'm nice, maybe they'll let me out of here with a warning.
Sure.
And instead, they are just provoking confrontation. And how dare you?
That's all it
it's
is.
things that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be one of the reasons a lot of you guys leave, or a lot of the younger ones.
I mean,
especially.
that's pretty much universal. That's just as bad in the suburbs, and it's because of the social media.
A lot of that is in the suburbs.
Yeah,
a lot of them are
yeah.
Karens, as the
Yeah.
saying goes.
Yeah.
So
What's the other one? Kevin's.
There you go.
Kevin-
And I didn't mean
Kevin.
to say that was similar to the other things in the inner city. I'm just talking about policing in general, the lack of respect. And it, I don't want to say it started with the summer of 2020, but as soon as the abolish the police movement started and ACAB started, and people just decided the cops are the bad guys. The George Floyd incident proved it, which is a totally different story, which we could talk about if you want to. But ever since that happened, for the last 4 years, abolish the police, defund the police, don't trust the police, and so forth started, it was just like, who do you think you are? You are no longer in control of the situation.
Yeah.
That's what the public, or a portion of it, has decided.
It's very dangerous, and it is. It's a very small portion. Here in Cleveland, I've said this before, there's not a neighborhood in the city where the vast majority, and I'm talking about 98% of the folks in that neighborhood, aren't great, God-fearing, law-abiding citizens that love seeing the cops around, all right? But who do we hear from the most? The defund the police folks. Well, why do you think that that's a good idea? Because they've had a negative experience somewhere in their family. Somebody got arrested. Somebody, God forbid, got shot by a cop, and that's not something that any of us go to work wanting to do. That's just a narrative, and it's a narrative that people that make money off of that narrative need to keep pushing forward in order to justify their existence. It's that simple. That is not, and I don't care, Republican, Democrat, central people, independent thinking people don't believe that. We have more cooperation than I've ever experienced on this police department with witnesses coming forward, because people are just absolutely sick of it.
Is it getting any better since 2020? I mean, 2020 was when you had what they call it, the CHAZ, the autonomous zone in Seattle, where they burned down a police station in Minneapolis and all this other stuff. But
with no consequence, by the way.
Exactly.
Right.
But since that time, I've seen situations where city officials and other politicians who kind of condemned and criticized the police and called for defunding and so on and so forth, they have come out and now said, we need more funding. We do need more police. The forward, we're under budget, and so on and so forth, like you are here.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes me wonder, do they now realize the error of their ways, that they cannot just trust that people will be good if cops aren't around, that fewer cops makes us safer, that entire narrative is busted?
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. How many victims have those idiots created in getting to that mindset?
Yeah.
You know, it's not rocket scientists here. If we need, we have, you know, if you have 4 narcotics detectives working in a city of this size, hypothetically, you know, what do you think is going to happen with the trafficking? The dope boys are going to say, man, we got a free pass in this place, you know, because nobody's out after them. The people that want to defund the police, that are abolitionists, they do not want us there because we're messing with their game. You know, we are enforcing laws. We're looking to help the underdogs. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Give me a break with that. What did they do? They're laughing all the way to the bank, the hierarchy of that organization. Not one penny has been spent in impoverished African-American neighborhoods in any city. I don't care what city. You show me where one penny has been spent to help those kids out, to give them something to do.
Or
You know,
those senior citizens in the
senior
Black
citizens.
community. Does her life matter?
Absolutely.
How about making it a little better?
Yeah.
You're collecting, and I don't know how much they collected nationwide or in the individual organizations, but it's in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And yeah, how many Black lives have you positively impacted with that money outside of your own leadership's mansions that they built with it?
Yeah,
Which
done.
is a, and I know this, you know, I hate talking about it, but it is what it is. The reality is that, you know, we're in a situation where the police, and it's been this way for decades, obviously, the police and African Americans are in somewhat of an adversarial relationship. It has gotten so much better through the years, but then it took that giant step back after Michael Brown and a further step back after the George Floyd incident.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that what you said, when you said 90% of the people that you deal with, including in inner city Cleveland in what are called the quote unquote Black neighborhoods, those people want you around. They're your friends
Absolutely.
because you are their best chance of survival.
Absolutely, and they're sick of it, you know. So what do? We're starting to get a little bit creative as law enforcement.
How?
We have I have business cards that don't say police on them. You know, they say Heirloom Electric Solutions. You know, a business card, a regular old business card with my name and my phone number on it. You know, try giving my police card to some kid that's standing at a crime scene, standing at a homicide.
Right.
It's not going to happen, and you're putting that kid at risk.
Yeah, because if he's seen with it, he's going to be
Right.
thought of as a snitch
Bob,
or a narc or whatever.
Yeah, we've been in houses where my card has been, or my partner's cards have been on the refrigerator door magnet, you know, next to the pictures of the kids and the grandkids. So there is ways to make, and we are making inroads in being able to communicate better with the law-abiding citizens. And
Whose
that's
idea was that?
that mine.
Is it?
I would love,
I love
I
that.
should have patented it.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not. That is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's because you
Yeah.
can't just say call 911, or again, they're going to know you called the cops, or you
Yep.
can't just call Cleveland Police. And if they're caught with that card, I mean, that's
Yeah,
really
here
really
in Cleveland,
ingenious.
I think I'm the first one that did it. But
Wow.
you know, but the guys, it catches on with the guys,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the supervisors, and you know, of course, that's out of pocket. You know, the city doesn't do those cards,
Of course.
But you know, you got to do what you got to do to make it right. And these guys and gals and law enforcement and first responders are just absolutely incredible people. You know, maybe that's why you asked earlier why I stay around. I said I love being surrounded with a bunch of heroes. I mean, these are really good, God-fearing, there for the underdog. You know, don't mess. Here's the rule of thumb for all law enforcement. I'm going to speak for all of them right now. Don't mess with our kids, and don't mess with our old people. You know, we'll deal with everything in between, the domestics and that kind of stuff. But man, you mess with our kids, or you mess with our elderly folks that truly can't defend
Right.
themselves, and you're going to have a big problem with law enforcement in all parts of this country. You know, and the people that don't want the police here know that and understand that, and they're doing it for a reason. You know, to make their life simpler, to make their life easier, to make it easy to smoke, shoot heroin in the park in Seattle, Washington. You know, let's just make it easy for these guys instead of criminalizing it. Here in Cleveland, you can fire your gun in celebration as long as you're in your own yard. Who thinks of stuff like this? You're firing.
It's a city ordinance?
That's a city ordinance. You know?
I didn't know that.
That is absolutely a city
So
ordinance.
what if the bullet doesn't come down in your own yard?
Exactly.
Because the chances are you're not going to.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's illegal if the bullet crosses a street, right? Prove that.
Yeah, right?
How are you going to prove that?
Right.
You know, so what they did was a bunch of people that were concerned about the number of cases that were being put on people for going out and doing something stupid like shooting a gun in the air. Now you got a felony, you know, or now you got to spend a lot of money to get yourself out of that. So the politicians, because the squeaky wheel was screaming about it, oh my God, and it's a racist thing, because no white people shoot their guns in the air, which is it's just so ridiculous. It's sickening. But
You know, I mean, I kind of saw it the other way. I picture, and I don't mean to be however this sounds, but I picture redneck hillbillies being the ones,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I would have thought. I wouldn't have thought black people shoot their guns
Yeah.
in the air in celebration more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
The city is adopting that ordinance based on the state law, which was written for rural Ohio, for the farmer that wants to set up hay bale up out in the field and shoot.
Right.
Yep, you can shoot. You can do that as long as it's on your
And
property.
that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
But that's different than celebration, shooting them up in the air.
Way different, and it morphed into that. And then you get the citizens complaining about all the gunfire on New Year's, and then you get our illustrious leaders here in Cleveland and elsewhere going, well, hey, we don't want the gun violence. It's the guns. It's the guns. We got to get rid of the guns. Stop with that. You dummies made the ordinance to allow people to do this. You tied our hands. We can't do anything about it, which further infuriates the law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
So then the politicians start hearing about that, like especially here in Cleveland, and now all of a sudden, now we're going to start looking at a different ordinance. That's how it works. But how many people have to get hurt
Before they realize it,
take,
yeah.
And I promise you this, one politician's kid, God forbid, and I'm not wishing it on any of them, one politician's kid gets hurt, and that's what, now all of a sudden it's a big deal.
Let's stay on guns, not with that ordinance, but just in general, because, it's been a little over a week now, the terrible shooting at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade, right? We saw what happened there. 23 people shot, including like 8 children, 1 fatally. I want to say it was 8 critically, and then the others wounded non-critically, but still. And the first thing wasn't who did it. It's why are there guns? Why are there guns? We got to do something about the guns. One of the Chiefs players got on Twitter that afternoon and talked about how, when are the politicians going to do something? And usually they do it in a partisan way, because typically speaking, one side is a little more protective of the Second Amendment than the other side. But when are they going to do something about all of the guns? I'm trying to remember who it was who essentially declared that it is the Second Amendment that is to blame for all of this. Then we found out that 2 of the shooters were juveniles, which means they didn't they didn't get their guns legally. They broke the law. Typically, this is the way it works. You can outlaw anything, and it's not going to stop people from getting their hands on it. Yep. So as an officer, and you can feel free to speak for the profession if you want, how do you guys feel about the Second Amendment and citizens' rights to carry, especially because of what you're enduring here with 200-300 officers under budget, and citizens know that response time is higher than ever before, and if I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to have to protect myself because I can't count on the police to be here or not. How do you guys see that?
We love it. The vast majority of police officers have no problem with law-abiding citizens having a gun. In fact, we encourage it. I went down to Columbus on 2 different occasions as a union president and testified on behalf of the CCW law that they were debating at the time. And I was one of the only law enforcement officials that was in favor of that, because I know that if you're carrying a gun and you're a law-abiding citizen and I'm getting my butt handed to me out in that street some kind of way, or somebody's doing something bad to me, that you're going to be able to help me with that. You're going to be able to defend yourself. You're going to be able to defend your family with that. Now take that one step further.
You're talking about constitutional carry, right?
A constitutional carry, sure. And yeah, because most of the homicides that are committed are not committed with legally possessed firearms, you know. So what does that tell you? It's not the gun.
You need to go and get that?
Yeah, right. No, that's the firemen. They're late for dinner.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, it's the they're not legally possessing these guns. They're illegally obtaining these guns. So what does that tell you? It's not the guns that are the problem. It's not being able to go buy a gun legally that's the problem. It's the problem is that we're not spanking the people that are doing it illegally. You know, here in Ohio they have gun specs, you know, a 1, 2, 3, 6-year gun spec. That's time that you have to do on top of whatever sentence you get when you're convicted of something. You know, that's a step in the right direction, but even that is becoming null and void with the bad actors out there. They don't really care much about that.
But you just said you're one of the few who spoke up in support of constitutional carry in law enforcement. So you're saying, generally speaking, the rest don't. They don't.
Well,
like it.
The chiefs of police, the political law enforcement officers, the chiefs of police, the group of sheriffs. You know, generally back then, now I don't think that they're thinking the same way now, but back then, the FOP was against it. I took a lot of heat because I'm out there saying, absolutely, that guy that's carrying that gun legally is going to come help me when the chips are down. I'm not worried about him hurting me with that thing. And that's the majority of the
these
people.
are the traditional good guys with guns that we talk about.
Yeah,
the only thing that
absolutely.
stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Absolutely.
Usually we think of that meaning police officers, but if you're outnumbered and you're outmanned and you're literally outgunned, a good civilian with a gun can still help a situation.
Sure. I mean, being working in a homicide unit, I see it firsthand. You know, these kids are not killing each other with guns that they went and bought at, you know, a gun store legally with the background checks and everything else and the classes that come along with it. They're getting them on the street. You know, why are they getting them on the street? Because there's a market for them on the street. Why is there a market for them? Because there's none of us are going out there, none of us law enforcement are going out there specifically targeting gun sales. You know, you got the ATF and you have this task force and that task force, but collectively you don't have us attacking that problem. And then once we arrest them, the prosecutor prosecutes them here in Cleveland or Cuyahoga County anyhow. Some counties not so much across the country, but they prosecute them, and then the judges give them a hug and a little slap on the butt and say, don't do that again, and send them on their way. Yeah. You know, so there's no consequence for it. And when there's no consequence, human nature is you're going to keep going until you finally do something where there is a consequence, and by that time it's too late. Now you're looking at 30 years because you just killed a guy that's walking down the street minding his own business. You tried to rob him. You know?
Yeah, it's frustrating to me too because it's hard enough for you guys, you know, to do your jobs without being thrown in prison or somebody trying to, or being carried to your own graves under normal circumstances. But now we've got, and I'm not suggesting that attorneys are the problem. Big picture, everybody has a right to defense. Everybody has a right, and every family has a right to seek recourse if they feel like they've been wronged. But I'm looking at some of the attorneys.
And the cops agree with that, by the way.
Yeah, I know they do.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah. But I'm looking at some of the attorneys, and I'm talking about the civil rights attorneys.
Ambulance chasers.
Who always find something wrong with the police before any investigation is conducted. And then even after an investigation is conducted, you know, particularly in a police-involved shooting with a minority, after it's conducted, if it doesn't find any fault, well, then I want another one. I want another one. All the way up to I want the Department of Justice to do, you know, some sort of civil rights investigation. I want to find something wrong. And even if you go all the way up there, there's nothing wrong. They still blame the racist criminal justice system, starting with the racist cop and the racist investigators and the racist everybody, because they can never do the job right.
Correct.
How do you feel about those people? People like Benjamin Crump, who's become like the de facto, lawyer representing every family of every, officer involved shooting suspect in the entire country.
Yeah, they're predators. They are absolutely preying on families that feel that they've been victimized in some way, shape, or form, and they're doing, here in Cleveland, Tamir Rice. Okay, the picture terrible story. The picture that was shown of Tamir Rice worldwide was of an 8-year-old little boy at a birthday party, his birthday party, much happier times in his life. The reality was what those officers saw was a 5'7" tall, 210-pound, size 12 boot wearing, extra large coat wearing juvenile with a little starter mustache, and it was a gun run, and he's pulling a gun out of his waistband. They didn't see an 8-year-old Tamir at the birthday party, and without getting into all the facts and the reality of that situation, how irresponsible is it for these attorneys, these ambulance chase, that all they do is profit? They're profiteers on this kind of stuff. They create division where there shouldn't be. They create controversy where there shouldn't be. And you're pumping that out there, and they're allowed to get away with it because of the very liberal media that lets them get away with it. And I'm at the Union Hall saying, hey, that's 8 years old. That was 4 years ago. This isn't a child frolicking in the park. This was a kid that size pulling guns out on people that were walking through the park for 22 minutes prior to the police arriving. African-American man is the guy that called on him. He waited to call on him until Tamir Rice turned his back on him. Those are facts. Those are facts that we know. But yet the city of Cleveland pays these attorneys $6 million 5 months before any of the 5 criminal investigations were completed and before the administrative investigation was completed. Did they break any rules? Why are you paying that? Well, it's an election year for the mayor. So shame on them.
It was such an emotional issue, obviously,
Absolutely.
because the media portrayed that young picture, that innocent-looking little very small child picture, and so
that was given
like,
to him by the
lawyers.
This
is wrong. Yes, pay these people, pay this family.
Yeah.
The media did. I want to show you something.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I ask you about Ben Crump is because the subject of crime is obviously one of the top. And we're going to talk about the impact of illegal immigration on crime too shortly. But obviously, violent crime in America is on the rise in a lot of these cities, as we talked about, and it's leading to even more division in a lot of these communities. And so, Benjamin Crump, the civil rights attorney of so many, like I said, went on a TV show or a podcast or something. I don't know exactly who it was he was talking with. I can't play the video because I don't know the rights to it. But I'm going to give you a story to tell you what he and others said in this video about crime in America, and I want to get your reaction to it.
Okay.
Kind of throw that up there. No. There you go. Well, let me see that. Let's see that headline. Want to end crime in America. Prominent civil rights attorney says, change the definition of crime. Now scroll that up there. I want to read a part of this, everybody. All right. In one segment of the special on MSNBC, as I noted, it was, there you go, it was entitled Black Men in America, Road to 2024. A group of black men, including MSNBC contributor Charles Coleman Jr., race hustler Al Sharpton. Now, this is from a website called Red State, so they're going to be a little more aggressive with it. This could have been on any other site. I want to tell you the quote, though. It's not the opinion of the writer here. I want the quote from Ben Crump that is the most important thing here. Crump, a prominent civil rights attorney, suggests the U.S. justice system creates laws to criminalize black culture and that crime could be eradicated if they just changed the definition of it. They come up with, this is a direct quote here, they come up with things to profile us for. I believe this with everything in my heart. We can get rid of all the crime in America overnight, just like that. And people ask, how, Attorney Crump? Change the definition of crime. If you get to define what conduct is going to be made criminal, you can predict who the criminals are going to be. They made the laws to criminalize our culture, black culture. So, Steve, I think what the civil rights attorney here is saying is that they're looking to see what black people do a lot of, and then saying those will be called crimes so that we can arrest them. Not, here is a list of things that people shouldn't do to one another overall, and we're going to prosecute the people who don't do those things. He's literally saying we have to take the things that people in the black culture do more of and say those aren't criminal.
Yeah.
Just to stop having so many African Americans being caught up in the criminal justice system. As a law enforcement officer for 30 years, you say what?
Well, first of all, he's saying that from his Bel Air estate, right? I mean, he is making money hand over fist on this controversy that he is creating for himself, for his own benefit. 90% in Cleveland, 90% of the homicides are African American suspects killing African American people, beautiful people. I'm talking about 72-year-old grandmother sitting on her front porch, 3-year-old little baby sitting in a car, 7-year-old little girl walking home from school. That's the reality. So if he's not willing to admit and recognize that there's a problem here, and I don't know what the solutions are, throw money at it, throw more cops, I don't know what those solutions are, but I know that you're never going to get to an end of it unless you actually identify the problems, right? There's that is a true statistical, I have the bodies. There's no way that they can hide the homicide rates anywhere because you have the bodies, you have victimized families that are dealing with this. So for Mr. Crump to sit there and say what homicide? You know, we made up homicide because we want to put 90% of the murderers happen to be African American in this area, and we want to put them away. No, all I do is work for African American families that have
that's
been
the conundrum,
victimized.
isn't it? Because those who want to condemn policing are essentially saying that you're finding reasons to profile us, to follow us into our neighborhoods, and then see us doing things wrong so that you can arrest us. That's kind of the argument he's making here. But as you pointed out earlier, the victims or the would-be victims in those communities want you to follow them there or to just routinely parole there, not to look for people doing something wrong so that you can punish, but that so you can look for victims of those wrongdoings so you can protect. And they don't seem, when I say they, I'm talking about not a race of people or not a class of people, but people who say things like this, people who are in the business of race, you know, what some might call, you know, racial arson. I've called it that before. But the people who are in the business of building the Chaz zones and the defund the police movements and so on and so forth, that's what they think. They think that you're there intentionally to look for people to lock up, rather than we're looking for people to protect from the people who might do something that is worth locking up. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, and again, race baiting at its worst. Imagine what Mr. Crump would be doing, or Savod Chandra here in the Cleveland area, what they would be doing if there was actually none of this division, none of these wedges that these two guys and people like them, Sharpton and the rest of them, keep driving. Those guys make millions and millions of dollars off of that controversy. And it's not factual. The fact of the matter is that we have more cooperation from law-abiding citizens, and that's the only differentiations I make, is there's criminals and there's law-abiding citizens, and that is it. And I don't care if they're pink. No cop does. Pink, blue, black, Puerto Rican, it doesn't matter. You know, there's great people everywhere. They just want to live in peace. They don't want their kids getting shot in their front yards. And when that happens, they call us. We're not racially profiling. What the homicide the homicide ORC is racially profiling because 90% of the folks that are involved in homicide investigations are African American over the last 3 years in this city. That's ridiculous. You know, we've had studies here in Cleveland and nationwide about the profiling for traffic stops. The reality is that most of the guys don't see who just went through that red light 2 blocks up ahead of you, you know, and they don't care who did it, you know. So, and that was proven false here in Cleveland. Oh, they're racist. They're profiling, you know. University of Cincinnati came out and did a study on it, and they came up with inconclusive, which for that liberal school means it's not happening. We can't prove it. What are you going to do? You know, I'm a young cop working in the 4th District, which is 98% African American, great people out there, every neighborhood, right? If you looked at my arrest record or the tickets that I wrote over the course of my career in the 4th District, you would have had me pegged as the next leader of the Klan, because that's all we dealt with in the 4th District. By nature, that's just where folks live. That's the group of folks that we're dealing with the most. It doesn't mean that we're racist. What's the answer to that, Mr. Crump? Not arresting. You know, we can only arrest a certain amount of African Americans that break the law because we want to fall into your category.
Because equity.
Yeah,
this
equity.
is the E in
Equity. How about we try this? Don't kill people. Don't rob people. Don't steal their cars at gunpoint at the mall, Strongsville Mall. You know, it's not
moreover,
just
don't run red lights and don't do things that are going to bring a police officer into your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Now, and again, you know, I'm going to be way too personal here. But I've got a crappy driving record. I have had so many speeding tickets in my life, and I am, last I checked, I'm not very dark. When I speed and if I roll a stop, I mean, I'm getting hit. I'm getting hit all the time.
Yeah.
Even though I know a lot of cops. You know, the little courtesy cards only go so far before, like, you know, too bad. You know, here's your ticket. Slow the hell down, you idiot.
As soon as they look at your driving record, right?
Yeah,
it's
right?
out the window.
And it's
right?
true.
I get it.
So, but I mean, the reality is I can get myself out of that by just being more careful. And if I don't break laws, and if I know if it's 55 and I'm okay at 60, but I'm not okay at 65, go freaking 60.
Yeah.
I can make those decisions, and I'm not going to blame, you know, a mythical profiling or targeting or whatever, you know, type of attitude for the mistakes I bring on myself. So
it's lucrative for them. It's lucrative to keep driving that wedge, drive it. Racism, the thought of racism will never end in this country until you get rid of guys like that, Crump and Sharpton and everybody that's driving that wedge. Until the NFL stands up and says, "Listen, you guys work for us. You're not kneeling," right? That is a wedge.
Yeah.
Think about who the demographics are of the folks that go to the football games. Middle class people, black, white, pink, purple. And you guys you millionaires are gonna sit there and take a knee and you know, disrespect everything that most Americans stand for?
Yeah.
No.
Probably 97%
well, that
of
cost
Americans.
them, right?
3% of radicals did all of that. And you're right, it did cost them a lot. Hey, you mentioned your career. Something I found fascinating. 30 years on the job. How many of them as a detective?
14.
30 years on the job, 14 as a detective, 16 on patrol, right? Is that
with the
accurate way of saying that?
Yeah. Like 9 on patrol, then the union stuff.
Okay, got it. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm bringing it up is you got 3 decades in law enforcement, and you've never had to fire your gun.
Correct.
In a big city, well,
one dog that was trying to eat me.
A big city that has shrunken population-wise in recent years, in large part because of what we're talking about, crime and so forth. But this used to be a very large city and a very violent city, quite frankly. You know, a lot of you know, inner city type of gang violence and things like that. I mean, there's a cop in this city that has had some 10, 12 officer-involved shootings. There may be a movie made about him someday. And he's considered a hero because he's been involved in so many things. He's been shot during the war. He served in Vietnam, and then he's been shot here, and he's had to shoot here. How did you go 30 years without ever having to pull a weapon?
You know, and I've been asked that question.
Or shoot a weapon. You pulled it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you never had to fire.
You're pulling that thing constantly.
Okay.
But that is, and try to explain this to these radicals, to Crump, Mr. Crump, right? Pulling your gun out on somebody is actually de-escalation, because I got the drop on you. Don't do anything stupid that's going to escalate this thing anymore.
That makes sense.
Right? Keeping that thing when you should have it out which is happening more and more and more now, is very, very dangerous, and it's not conducive to a safe, healthy relationship in the neighborhood or for the cops on the scenes. So you have to take charge of that situation. I think I got off base here. What was it?
Well, it was just about how you've been able to not fire. Especially how many gangbangers have you encountered through the years? How many of them have you had to arrest? And how many times have they pulled on you, or did you beat them to that, like you said, in order to literally de-escalate? You're not going to win this. Don't do anything. So therefore, a peaceful arrest can be made. I mean, and other guys don't. Like I said, there are other guys who have been a lot quicker on that trigger finger.
Yeah,
how do you...
and that's what it comes down to, is how quick you are to react. Now, there's been times, I've had 6 times in my career that I can think of off the top of my head where I would have been 100% justified in using deadly force. 100%. No problem whatsoever. And I didn't. And that's not just me. That is most of us. There's not any cop out there that has 5 years on the job that hasn't been in a situation where justifiable use of deadly force would have been justified. A use of deadly force would have been justified. People, you can't quantify that.
How is that language? What makes a shoot justifiable? Do you have to be literally in fear for your life at that moment, or for the life of someone else?
Yeah.
Does the person have to have drawn on you, or is it a whole variety of things?
There's every situation is different. This one gentleman, my partner and I got there, and he had just pistol whipped his wife or his girlfriend. We got her out in the hallway, and we started peeking around, and he's sitting on the bed with 2 guns in his lap, talking about he's not going to prison. You're going to have to kill me. We came around the corner, and I'm talking to him. I didn't have my gun out because I knew my partner did. And if that guy made a move towards me, he was going to take care of it, right? So you have that, and that comes with experience. So the young guys don't have that experience. And that ended up turning out okay. But that guy did jump, and he tried to get us to shoot him. And because of our experience, we didn't do that. Instead, we kind of bum rushed him.
What did he do to make you try to shoot him? I mean, did he pull it up? Because if he pulled it up, I'm wondering, how do you not? Right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, what did he do? He pistol whipped his old lady, his girlfriend. I'm going to get yelled at for saying old lady. My wife's going to yell at me. But he pistol whipped her. So it's the nature of the call. He's got guns. We peek around. He's sitting on the bed with 2 guns in his hands, and his hands on his lap, and I'm engaging him in talking. But at the same time, I don't want to get a BB thrown at me. My partner has got him covered, and we were able to kind of de-escalate that situation to the point where, and de-escalate, it's talking. De-escalation is a sexy word for talking, and every cop in America for the last 200 years would rather talk you into the police car or out of whatever it is that you're doing than arrest you or put hands on you. I promise you that. So de-escalation. But we talked to him, and I happen to have a gift of gab that's served me well throughout my career. And we were able to. What if
you don't have the gift of gab, Steve? And
that's the problem.
And what if you don't have the experience? You said you and your partner did it. What if this was in year 2?
Yeah.
And you don't have that experience, you don't have that, and you see everything that you just said. I mean, you're probably, as soon as he jumps, right, you're like, all right, you asked for it, you got it.
A rookie for sure.
Yeah.
A rookie for sure.
And that would go in the books, especially now, as being, well, they wouldn't say shooting an unarmed person because he had the guns in his lap and on his hands and whatnot. But the point is, you have these 6 situations you said that you can think of you would have been completely justified in shooting. But in none of them you felt like, if I don't, I'm not going home.
Well,
because if you would have felt like I'm not going home, you would have, right?
My wife
you've got Gina waiting for you.
Yeah, she was not happy with a few of them. And you know, in reflection, it's there by the, you know, you say a prayer to my little old Irish mom that's floating around above me, and saying thanks, Mom, because you know she saved my butt out of that. But you know, there's been times where I personally have been shot at, and you just don't have a good backdrop. That goes to training. You know, we
got shot at, but you didn't fire back.
EMS was pinned down. A guy shot his girlfriend upstairs. They went there for her. They got there before we did. The guy comes out on the balcony with his two toddlers and starts Swiss cheese in the EMS wagon.
Wow.
And we pull up and put the spotlight up there, and he starts Swiss cheese in our car. We can't. I'm not going to shoot. I'll take that before I shoot and accidentally hit a kid.
Right.
So there was just not a good backdrop
Different story,
there.
yeah, right.
You know, so every story is different, but I promise you that there is not a police officer out there with 5 years or more on that has not been in a situation where they could have used deadly force legally and didn't. Not because we're scared of it, because we inherently don't want to hurt people. We don't want to be in that situation. We're dealing with mental people a lot. The scary guys are the guys that know that they're going to prison for the rest of their life, and I ain't going back no matter what.
Yeah.
Those are the scary guys. You know, those are the shootings that you hear about, right? The traffic stop of the kid that's got the warrants, and oh my God, it was just window tint, and they pulled them out and they killed. Well, no, they killed him after he got out of the car and pulled the gun out of his waistband.
Because he's got two keys in the trunk that he doesn't want you to
Yeah,
see.
and
it's
Mr.
over
Crump,
for him.
Mr. Crump doesn't want to talk to you about that. There's a reason, Bob, that the majority
Did you
of
say Mr. Trump or Mr. Crump?
Crump.
Okay.
Crump. I'm never to confuse the two. But there's a reason that these police officers, and this is one of Crump's complaints too, and Sharp says, well, these guys, they never go to the grand jury, they never get indicted. If they get indicted, they never get convicted. Well, why do you think that is? Because we are legally allowed to take a life under certain circumstances. Right. And try to get that guy to understand that or admit to that, even admit to that. That's the law. Yeah. That's why you see acquittal after acquittal after acquittal after acquittal, because you can't push a political position on the reality that involves police work, you know, and that's what these guys do, and that's what gets them in trouble. That's what gets these liberal prosecutors in trouble. That's what gets these judges in trouble, is they start, you know, we have a prosecutor here in Cleveland that has filed misdemeanor charges on 14 different police officers in the last 2 years, right? Last 24 months. All four, not just Cleveland cops either, you know, all 14 of them have either been acquitted or have had their case Rule 29'd out of court, which means the prosecutor didn't, and internal affairs or whoever, didn't put enough evidence forward for the judge to even allow the case to go forward to the defense portion, which is our portion, you know, when it's one of my guys in a union position. And that's a scarlet letter. You know, I can't imagine what would happen to me if I took 14 homicide cases to trial and lost all 14 of them. I'd be walking a beat somewhere. Yeah. They wouldn't have me work in the homicide unit. We have a 90% conviction rate up there right now, which is, you know, astronomical, because we know how to do our job. We do it professionally, and we're not there to hurt anybody. I'm not going to put a case on somebody that doesn't have a case coming just for the sake of what? Right. Ego? I mean, it's ridiculous. Right. You know, and it fundamentally erodes.
Well, they have a reason, though. Those who are doing that, yeah. I mean, they've got an ideological reason.
Yeah.
You know, it would appear, and ideology in the prosecutors' offices and in the investigators' offices. Obviously, they've got constituents they want to get reelected, and they've got constituents who have bought into the narrative that you guys are bad, and therefore they're going to do everything they can to take down the bad cops, even if they're good cops. I want to go back to just overall crime, because this is a very interesting video I want to pull up here. And this was obviously it's from Twitter, and I'm still going to call it Twitter, by the way.
Yeah.
I agree with Ann Coulter. I heard Ann Coulter on a podcast say, what the hell is wrong with Elon Musk? Why do you change the name of one of the most recognizable brands in the world? She said it would be like changing the name of Kleenex. We're going to call it something else. Everybody knows it as Kleenex. Everybody knows it as Twitter. X is stupid.
He
I
just likes
like
to be
Elon Musk, but
controversial.
that was just stupid. Anyway, I want to watch this. This is Ayanna Pressley. She's one of the members of Congress who's in the group called The Squad, and she's complaining about a drugstore chain closing a store, another one. This is happening in a lot of places where the crime is off
Cleveland.
of the charts, and she's complaining about that. And I want to watch this, and I want you to give us your reaction to it. Let's hit that,
Yes,
Connor.
sir.
Mr. Speaker, Walgreens is planning to close yet another pharmacy in the Massachusetts 7th, this time on Warren Street in Roxbury, a community that is 85% Black and Latino. This closure is a part of a larger trend of abandoning low-income communities like the previous closures in Mattapan and Hyde Park, both in the Massachusetts 7th. When a Walgreens leaves a neighborhood, they disrupt the entire community, and they take with them baby formula, diapers, asthma inhalers, life-saving medications, and of course, jobs. These closures are not arbitrary, and they are not innocent. They are life-threatening acts of racial and economic discrimination. That is why I joined with Senator Markey and Warren to demand answers from Walgreens CEO. Why was there no community input, no adequate notice to customers, and no transition resources to prevent gaps in health care? Shame on you, Walgreens. Having a website with talking points about health equity and underserved communities is not enough. Walgreens is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that needs to put their money where their mouth is and stop divesting from Black and brown communities.
Steve, I saw you shaking your head out of the corner of my eye as we watched that. What are you thinking there?
Well, when you can't find people to work at these places because they're getting robbed, you think one of my daughters is going to be working in one of these stores that's in a crime-riddled neighborhood that she doesn't care about because we're defunding the police. We're putting liberal prosecutors in there. We're putting liberal judges in there. There's no consequence for bad behavior. And people are coming in and robbing these places at will and occasionally, shooting people, So Walgreens has a responsibility to its employees. Plus, there's a bottom line there, I'm sure. They're losing money. Walmart here and one of our Walmarts here, talking to the general manager, they're losing $15 million a year in loss because of the policies that are put in place by city council, by the corporation itself. Hey, hands off. You could hire some cops and have them work there.
Hands off, you mean with respect to theft?
Yeah, just let them
walking out, and
walk out the
employees
door.
are not allowed to stop them or detain them or anything.
Yeah. So, I agree with part of what she said. Those neighborhoods need those types of stores. But if you're not willing to do anything to improve the situation for the employees of those stores, for the customers of those stores, and she's making it sound like, well, Walgreens just packing up because there's a bunch of colored folks that live down the road. That's nonsense. I guarantee you there's victimization after victimization, cars getting stolen, drugs getting stolen, money getting stolen, property out of the store. Those are bottom line. It's a business. Now, multi-billion-dollar business? Yeah. But
you don't become a multi-billion-dollar business by having a bunch of individual stores losing $15 million a year or something like that.
Yeah. It's just another excuse for
I'm thinking,
bad behavior.
Yeah, and what gets me about it is I'm glad she's concerned. A representative is supposed to represent her constituents, and I'm glad she is concerned about what this is going to mean to moms who don't have a store to go to get the diapers and the everything she said. I get all of that. But what is going to be more beneficial here, and what is going to be more of a solution to the problem? Going to Congress and grandstanding like that to proclaim that Walgreens is racist because they're pulling stores out of, minority communities, or maybe calling a minority community town hall meeting We're going to hold a meeting at City Hall. We're going to hold a meeting at the public library in that 7th district or wherever. And I want to talk to the community. And I want to talk to, what's wrong with you guys? What are you doing? Why are you robbing the store blind? Why are so many shelves empty? Because people are going, and you've seen the videos.
Sure,
they're going in there and they're taking their arm and they're just scooping everything off of shelves into bags, garbage bags, and in many cases high-end things. Yeah. Which is why now they have the plastic, barrier, sometimes locked, sometimes not locked, to lift them up to get to things and so forth. But one would think that if I want the store to stay here, let's stop targeting the store for theft and let's talk to the folks about what we have to do to make sure that we're not doing that. If you're in need and you really, let's say you need formula, it's kind of like, who's going to prosecute a man who's got a hungry family and who needs a loaf of bread? Nobody's going to prosecute that, but they're going to say, come and tell us you need a loaf of bread and we'll give you a loaf of bread rather than you stealing it. In this case, it's for profit. It's not for needs, but talk to the community members rather than talking to a congressional or in a congressional hearing and making grandstanding remarks just to proclaim that the store is racist rather than the community that's targeting that store is doing really bad stuff.
Yeah. Again, you're blaming, you're pointing fingers at the wrong situation.
Well, the victim.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, $1 billion corporation can be victimized by repeated thefts.
And a lot of times, Bob, it's not even the big box stores like that. Think of the mom and pop store. These stores in Seattle that have been there for decades that are leaving because there's a tent city of heroin addicts sitting out in the front of it. Are they being racist because they're leaving that situation? It's not safe for their employees. It's not safe for their customers. There's a liability involved in that as well. I'm sure as soon as the attorneys get involved in it, they're going to make a mess of that, right? So instead of blaming racist Walmart or Walgreens, excuse me, let's look at the problem. This is the problem that folks have. You don't want to identify what the problem is because it's going to reflect poorly on you, and it's going to reflect poorly on your policies and your ideologies and the nonsense that you're pushing with this squad and whoever. The reality is that law-abiding citizens make up the vast majority of this country, and they're not going to put up with it. Who do you think is shopping at that particular Walgreens? They're not going there. My wife is not allowed to go down to Steel Yard anymore. She'll never admit that when she hears this, but no, babe, I'll go down there with you. If we have to get medicine or whatever it is, I will go down there with you. I don't want you down there by yourself because I don't want you having a gun put in your face and your car stolen, or I don't want you getting shot because you happen to be driving by when something else was going on.
My wife tells me the same thing. Just in the city I live in, there's a gas station that tends to sometimes be the cheapest in town. I've got the Gas Buddy app. Where's it going? Because I can't afford to spend Joe Biden money on gas. Sorry, but it's not in the best part of town, and she'll tell me if it's after 7 o'clock at night, don't go to, and I won't say the name of the but I do. Now, I'll make sure I've got my sidearm with me. I do, because she's right, and there have been a lot of problems in that area, but I'll go there if that's where the cheapest gas is. But she's like, no, don't go. Yeah. And the same thing is true of these stores. And how can you tell them to do it? How can you tell people that that's the wrong attitude to take? So you got people who aren't shopping there. You got employees who don't want to work there, and you've got a massive bottom line, profit loss there because of the theft. And then she's complaining that Walmart is.
And then you have leadership ignoring all that,
right?
And blaming the evil white empire. Yeah. That is the person that we need to get rid of. Those are the folks that are going to continue with this wedge. You've heard me talk about this wedge. They keep driving it and driving it and driving it until. What? And we're at each other's throats. Yeah. For what?
Well, it works.
Yeah, it works for them.
Because it's got, it works for them, and the wedge is there.
She's making money.
I'm sitting here thinking, I feel badly for anybody who wants to work at their neighborhood store there that is now closed because they wouldn't tell the rest of the neighborhood that's stealing from it to stop.
Yeah.
So so I'm sitting here judging. You're blaming racism for this, and it's nothing to do with race because it is literally, minorities in your neighborhood that are robbing your minority-owned store and kicking those minority employees in that store out of their jobs. Who's really has nothing to do with us.
So
but I feel bad
address the
for
problem.
them. I feel bad for those folks, and there's a way to solve it, and that's not it.
Yeah.
Quickly, because we don't have a ton of time left here.
Okay.
Everyone says that every state is a border state now because of 7, 8, 9, 10 million when you count the gotaways that are coming across the border. They're not just staying in Texas. They are being, in some cases, shipped or bused voluntarily to some of the sanctuary cities around the country. And others are finding their own way and going where they want. And crime, well, let me ask you, rather than make a statement, I'll ask the question. How much more of a problem is there due to rampant, unchecked illegal immigrants who are coming to the United States without money, with the exceptions of the ones in New York who are being given cash debit cards for $1,000 of taxpayer money, but most of them don't have anything. And many of them, it doesn't matter if they do have something, they're not here to assimilate, they're here to commit crimes, and they're doing so. How much of a problem is that, either in this state or just generally speaking?
I have not seen it or experienced it here yet. I'm sure that it's coming, but
Is the city of Cleveland a declared sanctuary city the way Chicago, New York?
I don't think so. Okay. I hope not. I really don't know.
We should both know that, and I can't believe we don't.
Yeah, if it is, it's something that they kept really quiet.
Yeah.
Hey, we're a sanctuary city.
Connor, see if you can look that up. See if Cleveland is designated as a sanctuary city or not.
I know that we have ICE here,
Yeah.
but it's not in a huge capacity right now. I'm not aware of any situation that I've been involved in that it's involved illegal aliens, and that's what they
You
are.
said the A word.
The A, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, right. I mean, the funny part is that's exactly what it still says in the U.S. Code.
Yeah.
It's actually in the U.S. laws. Illegal aliens are what they are called. If you are a person in this country, a foreign-born person without permission, you're an alien.
Come across the way everybody else had to come across, But at the end of the day, there's nothing good's going to happen from this. I lived in California when I was in the Navy out there. Before this big, huge problem that we have with the borders. That was just like normal border stuff back then.
Yeah.
And the people, the citizens out there were losing their minds because Medi-Cal, if you come across that border, your kid is going to school.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have any income. You're not paying into the system. Medi-Cal, you're going to have health care. You're going to have welfare. You don't have to be a citizen. That was back in 92, 93. It was a problem back then. Now it's just unbelievable what's going on there. And there's no upside to it.
The reason I'm asking about the crime, too, is because I'm sure you, like every other law enforcement officer, were just beside yourself when you saw that gang of 8 illegal aliens in New York City beating down 2 cops and hospitalizing them. And then 4 or 5 of them being arrested and turned around and set loose immediately with no bail.
That's
and
the
then
problem.
I think some of them were picked up in Arizona. They're trying to get to California, which is a sanctuary state, and the whole 9 yards. And then more recently, there was they were trying to arrest an illegal immigrant for something or another, and all of the others around them started attacking the cops and throwing things at them.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like I said, we're talking about 7, 8, 9 million people who have been brought in here who may or may not be here to say, I want to be American. And I want to be American. I want to follow American laws. I want to take advantage of the American opportunity. They're here, and they're bringing with them an attitude and a negative attitude that says, I'm here to just get what I can and take what's mine.
Yeah.
And that's got to be even more dangerous for law enforcement.
Here's my question.
Connor, did you get an answer?
Cleveland is not a sanctuary.
It is not a... Oh, there it is. Ohio has 8 sanctuary city locations. Each jurisdiction generally has policies or laws that limit the extent to which law enforcement or government employees will go to assist the federal government in immigration matters. Those cities include Columbus, Dayton, Lake County, that's Northeast Ohio. Lima, Lorain, that's Northeast Ohio. Lucas County is Toledo. Oberlin, Ohio, more Northeast Ohio, Paynesville. So 4 of the 8 jurisdictions or cities, municipalities, I guess, on the list are in Northeast Ohio, but Cleveland proper is not one of them. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's important to know. But yeah, we're talking about
big shocker, Oberlin. Huh?
I know, right? Yeah, there's a handful of those where I'm not surprised at all. But to your, and I will also say, by the way, because I live in the county in which 2 of those 8 and 2 of those 4 are. That's the county I live in, and I have not seen a massive uptick in what I would say is observable illegal immigration or illegal immigration crime. So, knock on, there's no wood around here. Knock on my wooden skull, but let's hope that's not the case. But finish what we're saying.
I would like to know. This is my question. I watch MSNBC, I watch CNN, I watch Fox, and when they're doing this border stuff, you see all these people coming across. Every one of them has got new clothes, Nikes, and an iPhone. You know, where the hell are they getting those things? And the iPhone's charged.
Yeah.
You know, so nobody's talking about the trains, the buses, the way that folks are getting. They're not walking 3,000 miles and having a brand new shiny pair of Nikes on, Air Jordans, you know. So
and even if they were
who's financing this?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, even if they were, I want to know, how did you get the money if you're leaving your country because it's so economically depressed that you're starving and you have to come to the United States to seek an opportunity to be able to care for your family and chase the American dreams? And then why are you so well,
which isn't
geared
asylum,
up
by
over
the way.
here? No, it's not. But that's what they lie about us. I don't want to get into all the particulars about that. But just from a crime standpoint, again, I see so many of those situations where, police officers who are already overworked and inundated with crime from American citizens, especially because of the defunding and you're understaffed. And now you got 8 or 9 million people here. If 1/10 of those people are here to be, to commit criminal acts, it's another million people.
It's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a major problem in the.
Well, and then there's some places that want to allow non-citizens to be police officers. Really dangerous, man. You are rolling the dice there because you can't get them to say the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, let alone raise your hand and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Right.
From all foreign and domestic.
Right.
They're not going to do it. So now what are you going to get? We're seeing now they just raised the hiring age to 55 years old.
I saw that. That's how desperate they are for recruiting.
I'm 60, and I can't imagine going through that academy at 55 years ago. Can't imagine it. And then what's the end product going to be? So I'm asking the guys that are in the academies, friends of mine in the academies, says, well, what are we getting here? With these 40, 50-year-old folks that are signing up, are we getting retired police officers, retired military guys, that want to come in and just kind of do something, do something good with their life?
Yeah.
He looks at me, he shakes his head no. He says, the security guard, and I got nothing against security guards, but every cop out there knows a security guard that's been trying to be a cop for the last 15 years that drives around in an old Crown Vic. Those are the folks that we're getting. That's going to end up being problematic too. And I'm not saying all of them are going to be, crappy cops. I'm saying you're definitely not getting the cream of the crop when you start lowering that bar and doing those types of things.
Steve, I'm going to close our chat with a prediction from you. Does it ever go back to the way that it was, where police officers are not understaffed, police departments are not understaffed, and police officers are not treated with the disrespect they are from the public, as we talked about in the TikToks, and law and order is respected again? Because right now, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen it like this. Mm-hmm. So looking at the staffing levels, the consent decrees and civilian review boards, and prosecutors who won't prosecute, the Gascons and the Bodines and the Braggs and the others around the country, and judges who won't give stiff sentences because they're not allowed to, violate the equity rules. There has to be the same number of different races of people in the prisons.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Is that ever going to end? Does this is the or is this the way? Is this the new normal, and it will always be this way? Will we ever return to the law and order we once knew? Is my question.
Yeah, I think so. You know, historically, the pendulum swings. And I think that we are experiencing a little bit of a positive swing in law enforcement now. Folks are starting to understand, you know, here's the thing. It's one thing when you're sitting out in the suburbs, you know, a little bit more maybe affluent suburbs, whether they're black, white. I'm not saying black, white, pink, purple, but when you're sitting out here and you're watching what's going on in one of the cities, you're going, oh, that's terrible. Well, and that's all you get from those folks. Well, now what's going on in the cities is spreading like a cancer, and sooner or later your inner-ring suburbs, which is what we're seeing here, are starting to get negatively impacted by it. So now people are paying attention to it, and we start putting Republican folks, conservative folks on school boards, because we don't like the trans storytelling in the libraries. We generally don't like that. Very small group of people like that, but most middle of the road folks, liberal, conservative, don't
Moderates,
like that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now they're doing something about it. And you're seeing it's starting with the school boards. It's gonna keep going into. We have to pay attention to these judicial races, prosecutorial races. You have to know what you're getting with these folks. Don't just do some homework before you go to the ballot and cast that vote, and see what it is that you're going to get. Now, if you like a guy that's going to do no bonds and let's put an ankle bracelet and give him a hug and a pat on the butt, who cares that they burn a house down with 3 kids in it? You know, if that's the kind of guy you want, then by all means, this is America. Go vote for that guy. But the majority of the folks don't really get too involved in those lower level elections, and that's where the rubber hits the road. Now we're seeing that happen more often, and I think as far as law enforcement goes, that defund the police nonsense is out the window. You don't hear about it anymore. You don't hear from Black Lives Matter anymore. They're fizzled out as far as that particular group goes. So what you do here is we need more police. We need more police out there. You have to have boots on the street. You can't. We used to have 15, 18 cars in my district out on an afternoon when I first started, and we only had 100,000 more residents. So it's not like we were talking about 1 million people. We have 15, 18 cop cars out there, and we took care of business. And we didn't have all this nonsense, and you didn't have windshields being black window tinted. You know that. If,
how many do you have out there now?
Oh my God! Oh, out on the road now,
Yeah, we used to have 15 to 18 cars. and I got
6 cars.
So you do have an optimistic view. The pendulum will swing the other way. Will you still be around when it does?
Probably not working. Hopefully on
on the job. On the job.
My kid will be. My son's got 2 years on the job, and he got hired here in Cleveland. He went at my insistence, with my fatherly advice, to get out of here, not because of the bad guys, not because we hate the people here. We love the work. We love working for the underdog. There's a lot of work to do here for police officers to do here, good work. But we don't like the politicians. We don't like the issue 24. We don't like the fact that there's 10 civilians that don't want to even do a ride-along in a police car.
That's the reason I asked you our last question.
Yes.
And you said you do see it getting better in the street.
Yeah.
But as long as there are politicians like you just described,
Yep.
and as long as there are review boards and consent decrees, which I can't see going away anytime soon, you're going to have people
they're making
fleeing.
$750 an hour.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So they're not going away.
anywhere.
So if the cops don't come back in big numbers, as you're talking about right now, I'm going to be a little pessimistic and a little cynical about that return of that pendulum you're talking
Well,
about.
the absolute, it's absolute necessity to have the boots on the street. We've been trained over decades, and the policies and the procedures and the tactics that we use have been written in the blood of police officers that were hurt. You know, a lot of them really bad.
Yeah.
Or citizens that were hurt. A lot of them really bad. You know, so it's not like the squad can turn around and go, hey, we're going to reinvent the wheel here. We know what the wheel looks like.
Right.
We know how to do the
It
job.
has worked in the past. But
Yeah.
You just have to
You're
learn
a
from that and
civilian.
embrace
You have no idea. Walk a mile in my shoes. Come work in a working police car for 2 weeks, and then you can maybe have an opinion about how we do things. But until then, I can't sit on the aeronautical engineering board to review a pilot that crashed, or a surgical board. You know, you can't sit in judgment of a heart surgeon that may have made a mistake.
Right.
We're not qualified to do that. These civilians are activists.
That's how I see it too. It really blows me away that somebody who's never done the job that is being paid. You know, they're being paid $750 an hour to evaluate the people who are doing the job that they've never done. To tell them how they're doing it well enough. It makes no sense. Some professions just don't get the respect that they deserve. Steve Loomis, 30-year police detective,
Yes, sir.
still going strong, still fighting bad guys. Thank you for coming on and talking crime and law and
I
order
appreciate
in the United States. It's noble work that you do. Thank you for your service.
Thanks for doing the show.
You got it.
You know, people need to hear this stuff, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified for all our new videos. New episodes dropping every Tuesday morning, and we'll have some of our favorite interviews from the vault dropping on Fridays as well.